coronavirus vaccine plan for you and the world.
Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live.
Vaccine nationalism, it's called, keeping the vaccine for my country, is a natural response. Governments are responsible for the freedom and well-being of their citizens, but there's a limit to what they should do.
Phone lines are open for your questions right now. Call 1-800-684-3110.
And there's also some obligation to the world. If the whole world is suffering, your country's not going to get better.
And now, your host, Jordan Sekulow.
Let me start off this day by first recognizing all those veterans who are with us today and have gone before us, the men and women who serve our country on this Veterans Day, where we honor their service. We've got a lot of great content that we've created just for this Veterans Day through ACLJ for adults, and we'll play some of that during the broadcast and during the breaks if you watch on Facebook and Periscope, and of course for children as well, a Veterans Day video through Bald Beagle, which explains Veterans Day to kids, and that's really targeted towards like pre-K to about 10 years old. So and we'll play that at the end of the show today, so that you can go to YouTube and the Bald Beagle page and share that with your friends and family. But let us all from the ACLJ thank all of our veterans for defending our freedoms, our rights. Without you, we wouldn't have those. We wouldn't have the court systems that we have to fight legal challenges like we are now in. And you, of course, keep us safe and volunteer to do that. So thank you to all the veterans. I know we have a lot of listeners who are veterans and family members that have family members who are veterans. And a huge thank you from all of us at the American Center for Law and Justice. Dad, I want to go right to Washington, D.C., because new developments in the legal battle over election 2020, specifically the presidential election.
Well, we now have three lawsuits. The lawsuit was now filed in Arizona as well. So you've got Arizona, you have Michigan, and you have Pennsylvania. Also, as of right this moment, the Supreme Court has left in place the stay that we received on Friday of last week from Justice Alito that requires the continued segregation of those ballots that came in late, and that any counting of those ballots not be included in, very important here, not be included in the main count. Now, why is that important? Because if there are voter irregularities, which have been alleged in a 95-page complaint or 105-page complaint that's been filed in Pennsylvania, it is possible that all of these cases will be brought up at the same time to the Supreme Court. I mean, I think that's a realistic aspect. And you could have a series of cases. Now, for instance, in, I believe, Arizona, there's going to be an evidentiary hearing next week. So these cases are moving rapidly in process, and that's what's happening here. And Andy Econo was with me here. And, Andy, the truth of the matter is that as you look at Arizona with a substantive trial, that is the evidence that then, however the court goes, becomes part of the record going all the way up.
That's absolutely right. An evidentiary hearing is a hearing where you hear either live testimony or affidavits, and that evidence is presented in open court. It's evaluated by the judge. It becomes part of the record. And if these cases, as I suspect they will do from the various jurisdictions, are consolidated and looked at as one case in terms of the underlying relief that is being sought, that will be heard by the Supreme Court. And whatever happens in Arizona or Nevada or wherever else evidence is taken is going to become part of the record. So it's very important that a record is developed with, as I said, either live testimony, people who were there, people who saw and heard, not just hearsay, or affidavits, people who swear to something because they have personal knowledge of it, Jay.
I do want to address, too, the subject line of today's show, which is America Last, Biden's globalist vaccine strategy. You see the one of his members of his COVID-19 task force, Dr. Zeke Emanuel, related to Rahm Emanuel, says that we should not provide all of the vaccine to America first, just enough to get it under control, and then give it to the rest of the world. Don't cure all the Americans first. Don't get it to all America. This would be the end of America first. You understand that, folks? It's America last. We're going to get into this policy being put together by Joe Biden's transition team on his COVID task force when we come back, and we need your support. It's a great month to support the work of the ACLJ Matching Challenge. Double the impact your donation at aclj.org. At the ACLJ, we're committed to defending the interests of our veterans and those currently in service. It's an honor to be able to highlight one veteran in particular on this special day, Lieutenant Colonel Charles S. Kettles. On May 15, 1967, Kettles served as a major in the 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam. He was a pilot of a UH-1 helicopter, better known as a Huey. On this day, the absolute limits of Kettles' skill and courage would be tested. Word came down that 80 men had been ambushed and pinned by a much larger enemy force in just about the worst place possible, an area inconspicuously nicknamed Chump Valley, because of the enemy's complex tunnel and bunker systems surrounding it. Kettles volunteered to lead a mission to provide reinforcements and evacuate the wounded. He made 4 trips that day into an extremely dangerous landing zone that was constantly raked with enemy fire. Later in the day, an emergency extraction was ordered of all remaining troops. With one serviceable Huey left, Kettles took the controls and went back for a third time. Upon hearing all men were on board, Kettles and Army gunships took off for the base. While still on the way back, Kettles was informed that 8 troops had been left behind in the confusion. Despite calls to stand down, Kettles returned to the LZ entirely unsupported by other aircrafts, refusing to leave any man behind. Kettles is credited with saving 44 lives that day. After a grassroots campaign to honor the war hero, Kettles received his Medal of Honor in July of 2016. He passed away in January 2019 at age 89. To all veterans out there, we thank you and wish you a happy and safe Veterans Day. Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. This is Jordan Sekulow. And again, a huge thank you to all those veterans who serve. We have so many veterans who support the work of the ACLJ, families with veterans in them, and veterans who call into the broadcast every day, and a lot of veterans on our staff at the American Center for Law and Justice. Wes Smith, a retired colonel, wrote a great piece up at the ACLJ.org on Veterans Day and why he was so proud to serve his country. Check that out at ACLJ.org. I did a special video for the ACLJ so you could share the video. We played it for people who were watching on Facebook and Periscope during the break, but it was specific to one American hero, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kettles. You want to learn his story, and we put that together in a short video, kind of a mini documentary for you for this Veterans Day to share with your friends and family. But we know that there is a lot going on in our country right now, including legal battles on the presidential election. New information that the Biden coronavirus advisor wants the U.S. to distribute the vaccine globally before it's available to all Americans. It's called the Fair Priority Model, and it says that what we should do is we should only hold on to enough of the supply of the vaccine to reach a threshold for herd immunity. So basically, just get enough people with it here, so that, but not cure everyone, not get everyone the vaccine. And then get it to the rest of the world. So no longer America first, Dad, if this Biden plan is one that is implemented, even though the vaccine's funding and its creation has been done by the United States. They're saying we should not have enough vaccines for every American who wants one. We should start shipping them overseas after we've got enough in place here for enough people to have it.
That's why we're saying at the American Center for Law and Justice now more than ever. Because if, in fact, Joe Biden becomes the president of the United States and that policy goes into effect, that's to the detriment of the United States. And the idea that this vaccine, and hopefully it works and it looks like it's going to be a success, would be made available to the United States first, not because we're trying to not be, and they'll mass produce this all over the world,
yes,
but to get out there, the idea that this is incorrect, we should not give it to the United States first, or that it has to be proportionally done in a different way. I think what that tells us is we know what the battle's going to look like. I think that's because, Andy and I were talking about that the other day, Jordan, up here in our D.C. office. We know what the battle's going to look like in this office because it's going to be these policy issues that are going to, and then we have a director of policy, Harry Hutchinson, who would deal with it first rate and both in a practical and academic way. But that's where the battle's going to be on the policy issues, and it'll be taking place. The defense of our policies will come right out of here.
Yeah, the thing that really amazes me is this Zeke Emanuel, who's related to Rahm Emanuel, who's big in the Obama administration, wrote something that is personally offensive to me. He says that listen to this, folks, by 75, creativity, originality, and productivity are pretty much gone for the vast, vast majority of us. Can you believe that somebody would make that statement? In other words, by the age of 75, you're gone. It's over with for you. There ain't no hope for you, as we would say. And Biden is 77, and if he takes the oath of office, he'll be 78. So who's he talking about, Jordan?
No, I mean, he actually wrote "Why I Hope to Die at 75." He's now serving what he believes is the president-elect. That's disputed, of course, in this COVID task force, who is well past 75. He's 77 and will be, again, into his 80s in his first term in office. So this is the same advisor who says, I just want to quote it, "Reasonable national partiality does not permit retaining more vaccine than the amount needed just to keep the rate of transmission below a certain point, when that vaccine could instead mitigate COVID harms in other countries." So, again, not America first anymore. I'm not saying that America shouldn't share, but shouldn't we, as the ones who have been the driving force, and by the way, we were told this whole time during the election, we were the worst country in the world. We were the problem. So if we're to believe Joe Biden that we are the problem with COVID-19, it's not really just that we test more people, but that we're the problem, then it seems like we should get everybody here who wants one vaccinated first, because we're the world's problem, according to Joe Biden.
But this is, Jordan, we're going to have to get used to this. I mean, this is going to be what they're going to be doing. If in fact Joe Biden becomes the president of the United States, so unless these court challenges produce a different result, the fact of the matter is, if it doesn't, these are the policies you're going to have to deal with. Now, what do you do as Americans? Well, you don't go run and hide your head in the sand. You confront them, and you work. You hope you keep the at least a conservative majority in the United States Senate, so that as these policies are put forward, they can either be blocked or renegotiated. This office, the American Center for Law and Justice office in Washington, D.C., is across the street from the Supreme Court. But with this administration, it may be just as important that we are across the street from the Senate office buildings and one block from the United States Capitol, which you actually see from our building. So we are positioned uniquely in that sense here to take action, to defend the proper values. There's going to be a clash of ideas, a clash of values, saying it that way. And what we have to do is put our positions forward intelligently, wisely, motivate our representatives in Congress. The House is very close now, too. When Van Bennett's on, I'm sure you're going to ask him about that. I mean, the House is very close on all of this, too. So this office is going to become the hub of the defense. Now, it's a defense. Before you were affirmatively putting policies in, Andy, now it's a defense.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. It is a defense. And that's exactly the kinds of things that we're seeming and aiming to do at the ACLJ. And as Jay says, we're at the center of the battle, with the center of it here in Washington, D.C., with our offices at the Supreme Court, and the influence that we hope to retain in the United States Senate if the races turn out to be the runoff races that I hope don't happen with Senator Perdue and Ossoff in Georgia and Kelly Loeffler and Warnock. Those are important seats that have to be maintained in order to maintain our majority in the United States Senate and not lose that to a, in my view, corrupt minority leader, Chuck Schumer, which would be disaster if you had the White House and the Senate and the House of Representatives all in the hands of the Democratic Party, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, here's where the Senate stands right now. There are 50 Republican U.S. senators. Alaska was called, North Carolina was called, so we're at 50. But if the president is Joe Biden, 50 is not enough, because if you lost these two elections in Georgia and it's a 50-50 split, it is the president and it is the vice president who is the president of the Senate and can cast tie-breaking votes. That would be Kamala Harris. So it's why, one, I think you brought this up at an interesting time, Andy, because this morning the Georgia Secretary of State has announced that the state is going to conduct a full audit of the 2020 presidential race, recounting by hand all of the millions of ballots cast in the state. He called it, quote, an audit, a recount, and a recanvass all at once. Now, that could be very important to the presidential race with the numbers so small there, dividing Biden and Trump. But it also, Andy, could be very important to Senator Perdue's race. There could be enough votes there where that race does not go into a runoff, and then we're focused on Kelly Loeffler, and we know that Republicans have got the 51 to retain. Now, that's still based off a recount. I think right now both Perdue and Loeffler, they are prepared for full-on campaigning these next 5 weeks.
Yeah, Jordan, you're absolutely right. The last time I saw any numbers was, I think that Senator Perdue was at 49.7. In Georgia, all you've got to get is 50% plus one vote in order to avoid a runoff. So I don't know what the results of this, and I'm very happy that Brad Raffensperger, the Republican Secretary of State of Georgia, has said what he has said. A full recanvass, and he used the word audit. Audit means to go behind the papers, to look at the actual raw data. Audit is a term of art in the business, and if that's what he's going to do and really look at these carefully and exactly, it may, I don't know what it's going to do in the presidential race. I hope it prevails there as well, but it certainly may be able to overcome that lead that Senator Perdue needs of 0.3 plus one vote in order to prevail without a runoff against John Ossoff, the communist Marxist media television personality who's never had a job in his life ever, and went to one of the most liberal of the preparatory schools in Atlanta. And to make him a United States Senator would be a travesty. So I hope that it does help for Senator Perdue and for the results of the presidential election as well, Jordan.
Dan, in this minute before we go to break, what do people who, I know they're watching the legal battles, they're trying to figure out, the likelihood of this. They're on pins and needles still. The GSA has not confirmed this because the votes have not been confirmed by the states. So what do people need to be looking out for these next couple of days?
Now, I'll talk more about it on the next segment, but I think, number one, you're going to see some additional lawsuits being filed. Number two, you're going to start seeing some hearings on these trials. Number three, you're going to start seeing appeals from those hearings on the trials. And number four, you'll end up seeing some of those at the Supreme Court of the United States. That is the likely way this moves forward. Now, there may be additional suits coming even today. We've got a full analysis of those lawsuits. But as they progress through the system, the ACLJ will file briefs on constitutional issues. We will see what happened. The Supreme Court, the stay is in place, Jordan. As I'm coming to you right now, across the street, that stay we got Friday is still in place in Pennsylvania. So I think everybody's waiting to see what happens next in Pennsylvania.
Support the work of the ACLJ. It's a matching challenge month. You double the impact your donation. We are busy, folks. Donate today at aclj.org.
There's a lot of states where the president's legal team, whether it's Michigan or Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, that you guys are making arguments. Kind of give me the broad brushes of where we stand.
So let's start off with Pennsylvania, because that's already made it to the nation's highest court, the Supreme Court of the United States. We know that Justice Alito has referred the matter to the entire court. This is about a judge, a local state court judge, extending the time that ballots could be entered, could be delivered, and then voted on, and then also whether they should have been segregated, which is what Justice Alito had said to do, and then they could be counted but kept from the total count. And they came back and basically said, we didn't do any of that. So now it's referred to the entire court. And here's what I think on Pennsylvania. A lot of challenges there. There's challenges in Philly. But I think what the Supreme Court is going to look at this week is whether or not there will be enough additional challenges from other states where a decision like in Pennsylvania or a decision from another state can become outcome determinative in total. So Pennsylvania alone will not be outcome determinative. So we looked at places like Nevada. We just filed a challenge today over the fact that they took their voting machine down, and what they did was they took the bare minimum, and which is the baseline of signature, how they count the signatures and make sure they're correct, and they turned it down as low as possible in Clark County. That's up to 600,000 votes, and we believe a third of those would likely be tossed out. That's in the current legal challenge. You look at Georgia, which is a very small number, and the recount there. And then out of recounts typically come legal challenges. Let us do our legal work, and then the courts are going to do this in an expedited manner. You know, whether it's about 30 days or so, I think we have all of this figured out. All right, welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. Great content that we have produced for you on for Veterans Day, for you, the adults listening to the broadcast, also for your kids through Bald Beagle. We have a great Veterans Day kids video there. If you go to Bald Beagle on YouTube, it's a nuggets of information. It really explains. My daughter loved watching it. Talking Chicken Nugget, explaining Veterans Day, but in a respectful way, but so that kids understand what Veterans Day is all about. How did it come about? Why do we thank veterans? And the difference between Veterans Days and Memorial Day as well, done in a kid-friendly way. So we've got that. So we've got all this available for you on Veterans Day. We hope you'll share that through your social media accounts, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Parler. We're everywhere, folks. So we encourage you to do that. I want to get to the phone calls, 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. Brendan calling in from Iowa on line 3. Brendan, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. My question is regarding the decision from the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court. When they made that decision to allow ballots to come in after the election day, that decision, from what I know, was made a week or two prior to November 3rd. So why did someone not go ahead and file some type of lawsuit right away to possibly get that reversed before November 3rd?
It was. So this was challenged. I mean, it was challenged initially. Remember, we're talking about the Supreme Court portion of this. There was challenges going up. The problem was we had to then get it to the Supreme Court, and you're right, that did not take place until after the decision came out. And the reason that it was up first on a petition for certiorari for review prior to the election, but the Supreme Court denied review. There was a 4-4 split in the court, and Chief Justice Roberts went with the 4 liberal members of the court, and it was at that point we had 8 justices, and so it was the way the split came down. You had Gorsuch, Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh, and then you had Roberts and the other 3 members of the court, Justice Sotomayor, Justice Breyer, and Justice Kagan. So it was tied, and when it's tied, it's an affirmance of the state court's decision. So that decision of the state court allowed for this extended period of 3 days, even though the Constitution is crystal clear that, and Andy's shaking his head here, that it's the legislature that makes this call, not the state. Now we're at the Supreme Court to deal with it, but it's got to become outcome determinative. That's what we really have to look at now.
Yeah, and what's important is every once in a while, it's a good idea to realize, that, folks, that what's important is the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the United States says the means, method, and manner and place of elections shall be decided by the, and I'll quote the word, legislature of the several states, not by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania determining anything, but by the legislature. Unfortunately, prior to the election, as Jay has just outlined, Justice Roberts voted with the liberal wing of the court, and that 4-4 decision, and that's the rule, says that you support what the lower court decided. So that's what happened in that case.
All right, let's go to the phones, 1-800-684-3110. That's 684-3110. Let's go to Robert in Maryland on line 1. Hey, Robert, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Yeah, hi, Jordan, and hi, Jay. I wanted to ask a question. Have there been any change in the vote totals for President Donald Trump in states like Arizona, also in Pennsylvania and North Carolina? And the other question I wanted to ask was in relationship to the the alleged voting fraud allegations. If any of these allegations turn out to be true, what would be the penalty for voter fraud?
Well, let me address the first one, and then Jordan could address it too. My understanding right now is those recounts have not started. So there's no way to tell yet because we don't have remedies in these cases. Now, Georgia's doing a hand recount, so that's significant. I think that's going to impact Jordan. Is that impacting canvassing as well?
Yes, it is. So they're going to look at an audit, a recount, and a recanvass. So all 3. They're going to hand count every ballot. So they're going to recount by hand every ballot. They're going to do an audit of the voting systems and a recanvass too of how it was carried out. And that is when you really look at, when you get these calls about, can you figure out votes being changed? Yes, because now you're not just relying on a hand. I mean, a machine. You're relying on human eyes that are going to be overseen by watchers to say, hey, was this vote correct? Should we have accepted this vote, or is this a faulty vote that was improperly counted? So was it an absentee ballot that wasn't filled out according to the rules? Toss the vote. Was this vote counted twice? Is this person on the voter rolls? Does their signature match up? All of that, and including a back-end audit, as Andy talked about, of the systems that were in place. I think that's huge. This is not just a hand recount. This is, as the Georgia Secretary of State said, it is an audit, a recount, and a recanvass all at once. All at once. And I think that this is especially necessary in a state where the margin is as close as it is in Georgia, and where you've got a key Senate race that by just a few thousand votes could end the race, and then one of those would no longer be a runoff. So the hope is that they could be done by November 20th, which would be well before the runoffs in the Senate, which are January 5th. So maybe at least one of those races could be impacted. It would be David Perdue's most likely. And then potentially, I mean, there could be enough votes there that could be legally challenged that could change the outcome of Georgia, or that are tossed because of irregularities and because they were, as we say, count every legal vote. That does not mean to count every vote that came in. And so that's what Georgia's going to be doing by looking at the recanvassing, the auditing, and the hand recount. Let me 1-800-684-3110 if you want to talk to us on air. That's 1-800-684-3110.
Yep.
Penny, I'll take Penny's call from Missouri on line 2. Hey, Penny.
Well,
Hi,
hi
Penny.
there. Hey, first of all, I want to tell you guys I am just so grateful that you do what you do, and I just thank you for taking my call.
Thanks, Penny.
Glad you called. Thanks.
Okay. My question is, if all the fraud and corruption and lying and breaking laws and procedures that govern voting have in fact been broken, and it's not enough to reelect Trump, then does Biden just get to be president?
Here's the way it works in a constitutional republic. Elections matter. The votes matter. If you run down all of the legal challenges that take place here and the courts rule against you, we are a country of law. And what that means is, if in fact the courts close the avenue for a challenge, then Joe Biden would be the president-elect of the United States. So you have the opportunity to run down those challenges in the way our Constitution's set up. But once those challenges are done, and the Supreme Court or the final arbiter, whatever court makes the final decision, and issues an order, that's it. So then you have to shift mode into protecting policy. Because, we've got a radically different worldview on a reshaping of the Middle East by President Trump and the administration versus what Joe Biden's going to be. That's for sure. And we talk more about that, I'm sure, in the second half hour. But, yeah, elections have consequences, Jordan.
Yes, absolutely they do. We preach that all the time. The presidential election, these runoff elections in Georgia are going to have serious consequences about whether there'll be a divided Congress or not. The recount is serious. The legal challenges are serious. But it's the elections ultimately that usually have the most serious consequences. Look at the Supreme Court now. Donald Trump nominated and confirmed 3 justices in one term. We'll be right back. Second half hour coming up.
It is a critical time for our nation, and the American Center for Law and Justice is on the front lines, defending life and liberty, engaging the issues that matter most to you and your family. Whether it's working to protect Americans from the dangers of radical Islam and the persecution of Christians, to defending life at the U.S. Supreme Court, to protecting your religious and constitutional freedoms, we could not do this work without you, without your support. And now your support can really make a tremendous difference. For a limited time, you can participate in the ACLJ Matching Challenge. If you make a gift now, it will be doubled. $25 becomes $50. A $100 gift becomes $200. Please stand with the ACLJ right now and call 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or go online at aclj.org. Thank you for your support.
Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. And now, your host, Jordan Sekulow.
And welcome back to the second half hour of Jay Sekulow Live. We are taking your phone calls at 1-800-684-3110. And let me again, if you were just joining us for this second half hour, a thank you on this Veterans Day to all the men and women who do serve our country and have served our country to defend the freedoms and liberties that you have fought for, so that we can take advantage of those, so that we may have the freedom of speech, so that we can take these legal challenges to court in a disputed election, so that we are able to talk to you like we are today and get the free information out. And again, we couldn't do any of that. The Constitution and all of its protections would be a lot of words without our military defending our rights, whether it's here in the United States from foreign adversaries or defending us from attacks from abroad. So thank you so much to all those veterans, the men and women who serve and have served our country, to all of our listeners out there who are veterans, who have family members who served or have served. We just want to thank you. And we've produced a number of things. We've got a great new blog up by retired Colonel Wes Smith from the ACLJ team. We have a lot of veterans working for us at the ACLJ. That's up at aclj.org. For kids, we have a special video from Bald Beagle up on explaining what Veterans Day is all about. I'll tell you, my daughter loved it, and it really did. It explained a day that they usually, this pre-K to 10 years old wouldn't really be able to comprehend, but it's done in a great way for kids. We also have this great video I did and narrated for a specific American hero on this Veterans Day, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kettles, who received the Medal of Honor, the Presidential Medal of Honor. So again, I encourage you to check out all of that we have on our social media, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, Parler, and Twitter. Check that out and share it with your friends and family. Now let's get back to it. And I want to get an update specifically on Congress right now, because I think this is key, just as key as, of course, the presidential legal battles are. We got updates there that, new challenges out of Nevada as well. And so, again, I think we watch that very carefully. The stay still in place from the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, and you're looking at Michigan as well for unlawful vote counting. So this is all starting to come together, as I've been saying these interviews. But, Than, there needs to be attention on the U.S. Senate, because right now, as it stands, Republicans have 50 seats. Democrats have 48. There are 2 up right now where we don't have a determination, both out of Georgia, both which could be runoffs, where Georgia voters decide that January 5th.
Yeah, that's right, Jordan. And we've been saying for days now on this broadcast that calls should have been made in North Carolina and Alaska. And now, by everyone except for Fox News in North Carolina, both of those states have been called. But those races have been done for a while now. So you're right. It's 50 Republicans in the United States Senate and 48 Democrats, with 2 races still outstanding. And, Jordan, I heard you touch on this in a previous segment, but I really want to emphasize this point. One of those races is clearly heading to a runoff because there were about 30 candidates on the ballot. There were 3 major candidates. None of them is close to 50%. That runoff will be between Senator Loeffler and Reverend Warnock. But, Jordan, the other race is very, very much still in play now that there's a hand recount and the canvassing that you talked about in Georgia. The latest numbers there are that Senator Perdue has 49.73% of the vote. That means that you only have to remove several hundred votes. And I'm just here to tell you that number, Jordan, usually does move in one direction or another when there's a recount. Jordan, even if fraud is not uncovered, even if it's all legitimate, a recount generally moves that many votes. Now, I don't know which way they would move, but I'm here to tell you that that race is still outstanding. It is not yet certain to go to a runoff. If Senator Perdue were to win that race outright, it would be 51 seats for Republicans and just 1 race to go to a runoff on January 5th. As of now, you're correct. The balance of power in the United States Senate might indeed be on the ballot on January 5th, but one of those races, Jordan, is still very much in play.
Very much in play because of the recount. And that recount that we now know is going to be very extensive. An audit, a recount, and a recanvass all done by November 20th. So in plenty of time to know whether or not they would have to take that race into a recount or not, and who controls the U.S. Senate. If we might know by November 20th if Perdue gets over the line there. But either way, I think you have to look at both those races as a runoff right now and prepare for battle to make sure there is a Republican Senate. We'll be right back.
Friday 6-piece nuggets. Number 11, prepare for the best nuggets in history.
It's time for Nuggets of Information. Let's talk about Veterans Day. Do you know what Veterans Day is? Veterans Day is a special day where we celebrate all soldiers, whether they're actively serving or retired, who've served this country. Not to be confused with Memorial Day, which is a special day where we remember and honor those soldiers who lost their lives in the service of our nation. Did you know there are now 6 branches of the U.S. military? The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, and the newest branch, the Space Force. They exist to defend our freedoms and keep us safe here on the land, on the sea, in the sky, and even way, way up above it, in the stars. It's very important to recognize the sacrifice and bravery of our soldiers. Without them, this country might be very different, and we might not enjoy the freedoms that we do today, including cheeseburgers. Those are good. So if you see a veteran or if someone in your family served in the military, make a point to thank them for their service. You don't even have to wait until Veterans Day. It's always a good day to tell a soldier thank you. Every one of us owes our veterans a lot.
Number 11.
Uh-oh, gotta run. This has been Nuggets of Information, Veterans Day edition. See you all again soon. And remember to thank a veteran today.
Whoa, those nuggets are spicy today.
Oh, Beagle.
Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. This is Jordan Sekulow. We are taking your phone calls, 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. And I want to get to the House as well, then get to more of your phone calls. Then in the House, Nancy Pelosi, they really underperformed, especially if Joe Biden does win, where he was winning in states that they needed to take back, yet in states like California with really tight House races, they were losing. I mean, a record number of Republican pro-life women elected. It won't be that the House Republicans will be the majority, but then tell people how close it could be depending on some of these that are still outstanding.
Yeah, this is a harder one to follow, Jordan, because, you have vacancies and retirements midstream. There were 235 Democrats at the start of the next Congress, only 233 at the end. So when you start talking about net pickups, it gets a little bit confusing. But let me just tell you this. There are still 14 races that are yet to be called. And as of now, Democrats only have 218 races called in their favor. That would give them a 218 to 217, a single vote advantage, Jordan. Now, of the 14 races that are out, the Republican candidate leads in 11 of them, Jordan. So the Democrat only leads in 3 of those races. So if those results were to hold, and they might move one or two seats in either direction, but if Democrats were to win just 3 of those remaining 14, and they're only leading in 3 of them, that would give them 221 votes in the United States House to 214 for Republicans. So, Jordan, that's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's only 4 seats away in the midterm from flipping control of the United States House. But more immediate, Jordan, it's an issue for Speaker Pelosi because she has to get a majority of the United States House. She can't lose it by plurality. She has to get a majority, 218 votes to retain the speakership. Jordan, that would mean something as simple as this. AOC, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and 3 other members, the so-called squad. Jordan, if they decide that they don't want Speaker Pelosi to be the speaker, if these numbers hold, just those 4 members of the United States House could deny Speaker Pelosi the gavel. It's going to be very, very interesting in the United States House if these numbers hold. And Jordan, just to kind of give you a ballpark of what that means, it means that Republicans are likely to flip somewhere around a dozen seats in the United States House, even though most prognosticators said that Democrats were going to pick up 10 to 15 seats.
I mean, think about that, folks. Just think about the failure, and they're talking about right now, of the Democratic Party. Than, do you think that Nancy Pelosi stays as Speaker, and do you think Chuck Schumer stays as leader of the Senate, especially if they don't take the 2 Georgia seats?
I think that Speaker Pelosi's gavel's in real danger, Jordan. I really do. And look, it was almost in danger last time. She had to cut a deal with the radicals, the far left radicals in her conference to get another term, and she said she wouldn't run for more than 2 more terms as Speaker. So in theory, she would only have 1 term left, and there was already talk of it might be the healthiest for the Democrat caucus to start transitioning, in their words, to someone younger, maybe someone more relatable to the far left. But Jordan, if it really does get down to she could only afford to lose 3 votes. It's not that they would vote for a Republican. They would vote for another candidate. They would vote for someone inside the Democrat majority, and Speaker Pelosi would probably still get the most votes. But, Jordan, I just want to remind people, that's not enough to become Speaker. You have to have a majority, 218 votes in the United States House. And, Jordan, they take as many ballots as it takes for someone to get 218. And if she doesn't get 218 on the first ballot, I'm here to tell you, she's in a lot of trouble.
All right, let's get right to the phones. We've been holding on. Let's go to Karen in Georgia on line 5. It's a hotbed now because you got 2 potential runoffs for the U.S. Senate where the balance of power hangs. You got Karen, a full recount going on in your state, a recanvass, and an audit of all of the votes. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'm excited about what's happening in Georgia. I was wondering, for whenever we do recounts in different states, are they recounting everything? So not just president, but House and Senate votes, so that could easily flip if we have enough recounts.
I think in Georgia's instance, it's very specific. This is more than just a hand recount. This is a full audit of the vote and a recanvass. And because I think of the close Senate race there, where you need that 50+1, that it could impact. That's what we've been talking about. So, yes, you could see other races impacted. Now, I don't know if there's any other races in Georgia that were so razor thin that it would be impacting them at the House level or potentially at the local level. You would know that, Karen, better than I would. But, Andy, when you do this kind of a recount in a state with this small of a margin, again, it is not outside the norm for things to switch.
It is not, Jordan. And as Fan said, we've got only Senator Perdue has 49.73% of the vote in Georgia against the communist Marxist John Ossoff. And this is the state of Georgia, heavily red, heavily conservative, heavily traditional. And when you do a recount, I think it favors the incumbent, and a few votes is all is needed to push Senator Perdue over that 50%+1. So I think that that's a critical state. And the fact that Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, has said he's going to do a complete audit, that means looking behind the vote. Canvass, audit, recount, everything. In other words, everything's up to be looked at and to examine. I think that's terribly important, and I think it may change the race, at least as Senator Perdue is concerned. I really do.
All right. I mean, there you go. We got another call out of Georgia. I think this is it's really an important state right now, and people who live there understand because the balance of power of the Senate and what Joe Biden would be able to do. He wouldn't be able to raise taxes. He wouldn't be able to raise your taxes. No Green New Deal. Of course, there'd be another midterm election coming up in 2 years, but it would prevent that. I think his most extreme nominees would be able to be stopped with this kind of a Republican majority that knew that their job was to really be the bulwark against the radical leftist policies that Joe Biden would want to put in place along with the House Democrats. So let's go to Mark in Georgia on line 3. Hey, Mark, on line 3. Mark, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I got a general question. Why is it taking so long to finish counting votes in swing states? And a Georgia question about, is it true that the Georgia audit will be performed by Dominion, the company who made the compromised voting machines?
Well, I think, listen, the Dominion issue will be looked at. That's why, Andy, they are doing a audit of the systems. That's what that means, Andy.
Yes, that I don't think that you're going to have the fox in the hen house doing the recount. Dominion is part of the problem. The Secretary of State, I know from having worked for the Secretary of State in Georgia for years as their counsel, that they have independent investigators and auditors who will be looking at these votes. So the canvass will be done by the Secretary of State looking at the votes in these various counties that have created the problems. But this is not only going to happen in Fulton and DeKalb County or Cobb or Gwinnett, the metropolitan Atlanta area, but it's going to be full and throughout the state, and it will be done independently, and it will not be done by anybody, in my opinion, and from what I can see, that may have compromised the vote to begin with.
All right, let's go. It's back to the phones again, 1-800-684-3110. This is an interesting one, too, on Georgia. Jim in Georgia on line 4. Jim, you're on the air.
Afternoon, gentlemen. Keep hearing about recounts and audits and such. My concern is that if these votes if there have been illegal votes that have been introduced into the system, that what we will be doing with these recounts and audits will be simply confirming and reinforcing the narrative pushed by the far left. I noticed that Rudy Giuliani had some pictures where he was saying that he believes that the votes were introduced into Pennsylvania from an extra-legal source.
Well, I think here's the thing, Jim. When you do these recounting, what you're doing, I'll go back to Andy on this because he's got that experience. Andy, you're looking for those votes, those fraudulent votes, bad votes, illegal votes, votes that should be tossed. So when they do the hand count, this is not even just about the actual votes that came in. They're looking for the problem votes, and they've got people observing them doing that.
I mean, you're absolutely right, Jordan. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the fraudulent votes, the votes that were introduced by fraud. So don't think that a recount is not going to be able, or an audit, as Secretary Raffensperger said, is not going to ferret those out, because that's exactly what you're looking for. So don't despair, Jim. I don't think that you should despair and think that that's not going to happen, because if it's a fair and full audit, which is what the Secretary of State said it was going to be, it's going to expose those, and that will, I think, affect the Senate race, and it may affect the presidential race. Should affect the presidential race if it's done fully and fairly, in my opinion.
All right, folks, we've got another segment coming up on Jay Sekulow Live. We'll continue to take your phone calls. It's a time in our country again where we thank our veterans that we have the rights to be able to challenge these election results, to go into court, to have recounts, to have broadcasts like this at the American Center for Law and Justice, to have organizations like the ACLJ, nonprofit groups where you can donate and it's tax exempt. And we have a matching challenge right now, and we're in the thick of all of these battles, folks. If you can donate to the ACLJ, you double your impact, your donation. Donate today at aclj.org. We'll be right back.
Highly respected Ken Starr, Pennsylvania's 3-day extension of the mail-in ballot deadline is a constitutional travesty. The Constitution says that state legislatures change the law when it comes to election, not state courts. So that's the point, right? Is that what the Supreme Court is saying is, wait a second, Pennsylvania, what you just did was not in accordance with the Constitution. Is my law and order legal training correct?
Yes. That's right. And what Justice Alito said in his first order was that you need all of these counties, all of these precincts, they've got to segregate, and now it's an order, segregate the ballots that came in late, and they can count them, but they cannot include them in the actual count in Pennsylvania. And so we're looking at not just Philly here, we're looking at tens of thousands of votes, enough votes that could potentially overturn who wins the state of Pennsylvania.
And these mail-in ballots, by the way, these mail-in ballots are the ones that the press talked about went largely in favor of Joe Biden. So if those ballots were to be excluded, that's a big advantage to President Trump.
That's right. And so, but for that to get to the Supreme Court, they've got to look at the other states too and make sure that we've got realistic legal challenges, which we believe we do, that can actually, when they're all put together, change the outcome of the Electoral College in favor of President Trump.
But at the end of the day, if they did something wrong in Pennsylvania, why not, settle it in Pennsylvania?
I think there's a chance, because enough state attorney generals have weighed in this Pennsylvania case that they may ultimately decide it, because of what you said, Sean, for future precedent, even if it doesn't affect the outcome. But I do think right now they're taking a step back to see what else is the Trump team, the president's legal team, the RNC legal team, what else are they bringing? All right, so on this Veterans Day, we produced a lot of content for folks, and some of that content is for kids specifically.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about Bald Beagle on air before, and my brother Logan, who's heading that up, and of course hosts the reprogram. But Logan, today, it was released a couple days ago, but it's getting most attention today.
Oh, yeah.
You did a Bald Beagle video, use the puppets and the cartoons for kids. It's about pre-K to like 10 years oldish on what is Veterans Day, basically.
Right, and you're seeing such a removal of history in some of these specific days. I mean, I'm doing it for my own kids. I'm doing it to make sure they're educated and they know why these days are important, why things like the Electoral College is important, as we've seen, why people like George Washington are important, because you're seeing history be changed, erased, and messed up. And we at the ACLJ created Bald Beagle. And yes, just a couple days ago, we released our Veterans Day for Kids video called Nuggets of Information. It's little chicken nuggets that tell kids about veterans and Veterans Day and why it's important to always thank our veterans. Here's what I've learned very quickly. My kids love it. A lot of kids are loving it. I get lots of great feedback from people who see it. But it's really important. And what's good is when you're done with it, ask your kids, what did they learn? What do they know the answers, essentially, to your own little quiz on what they saw. And what I've seen is that it's been very impactful very quickly. And like you said, we just released the video on Sunday, but we've really been promoting it today. It's already done. I believe my internal numbers say well over 30,000 views, which for a brand new kids YouTube channel is huge. I want to thank everyone. And we're going to play a clip from it. We're going to play it at the end, though. If you're watching online on Facebook or however you're watching it, stay tuned. We're going to play the whole full-length video, and then you can find it on our Bald Beagle channel.
If you're listening on radio, where do people go to find Bald Beagle? Because you've done one on George Washington. You've done one on the Electoral College. Yeah. Still very important right now as we speak. It explains it.
That one's our biggest video.
And by the way, I would say, because I think even though it's done through cartoons and puppets, a lot of adults need to understand the Electoral College and how it works. And then, of course, Veterans Day, keeping these days different than what Memorial Day is and what it's all about. But I think, again, this video is great. But where do people go, Logan, that are listening on radio right now?
Listening on radio, the easiest way, just go to Bald Beagle. And again, that's Beagle with a B. It's like a beagle and an eagle together. Think about it that way. BaldBeagle.com has our latest video. You'll see it there. Or just directly on YouTube, search for Bald Beagle or go to youtube.com/Bald Beagle. It pops up immediately. We are seeing YouTube actually has been featuring these videos heavily, and we appreciate that because, you never know when you're putting out this kind of content, where's it going to go? How's it going to live? We have seen great people share it. Please continue to share it with your friends and your own little audience that you may have, because it's important for kids. And look, it's part of the ACLJ, but actually on baldbeagle.com, you can donate. And you donate, your donation goes to the ACLJ, so we appreciate that, just like every other donation. When it's part of your matching challenge, it's a match gift, all of those things. But what it does, it helps us break that out as a line item to say, this is why this kind of content is important. It helps us determine our next step for Bald Beagle and for all of our content at the ACLJ. It's been really fun to do. It's a lot of work. Those puppets, what we've learned, are not easy. Our animation team is just incredible. We have just a wonderful group of creators involved with Bald Beagle, so I'm excited to share it with them. I believe we're going to play the full length at the end. Okay, we'll play the full length on the end. It's Veterans Day. Jordan, do you want to take some calls before you wrap up? Because there's some people on holding.
Absolutely. Let's take a couple of the calls. Let's take Layla's call in California on line 6. Hey, Layla.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for all the work you're doing. It's amazing. Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
My question is that the person, Zeke Emmanuel, whatever I'm on. His stand on, they're the same. They're anti-life. They don't want, that's the way. To them, it's all numbers. So why do we need to study Alzheimer's anymore? We don't need it because I guess after 75, you're done, right? And if he came like President Trump asked, what is your agenda, Biden? And he will never come out with anything. Do you think that if they came out and said that before the election, that senior citizens will be voting for Biden at all?
No, I don't think they would like this very much. We should all be dead at 75 and hope to be dead at 75. And
that's disturbing.
That's his COVID advisor who wants to make sure that the vaccine doesn't get to all Americans. It only gets to just enough Americans so where we keep our numbers low enough, and then we give it out to the rest of the world. It's the end of America First policy. Remember, President Trump was criticized for saying America first. This is the opposite of that. This is America last. And hope I die at 75 because I'm no longer created. Now I'm working for a guy who's 77 and is going to be the commander in chief. I mean, think about that. But they put these people on their boards because in their minds, they are that European elitist mindset. Let's go to Justin's call on line 2 in Virginia. Hey, Justin, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hey, good afternoon, and happy Veterans Day to all of you. Great day today.
Absolutely.
I read a story today. Yeah, it says, so the Biden team is considering legal options if Trump administration keeps stalling the transition. Now, do they have any rhyme or reason to be doing that right now?
Until the election results are certified, the GSA, which actually oversees, that's the Government Services Administration, until the election results are certified, the GSA does not need to provide resources. The election's not done, and so they don't provide the resources for the transition. So, I mean, they could try to sue, but the GSA has said very clearly, these results aren't certified yet, so we don't have a certified winner.
Jordan, this is not unusual or unprecedented either. In 2000, I worked for President George W. Bush's transition, and for weeks and weeks, for the 37 days until the Supreme Court made a decision, the funds were not released to move us into the official transition facility in Washington, D.C. So we were across the river in Arlington, Virginia. So look, the conspiracy theories that the GSA is somehow holding this up, it's just not factual, Jordan. Until it's certified, those funds are not going to be available. Yes, I would expect that Vice President Biden would continue to prepare, but Jordan, he's not going to get those funds and access to those resources until it's certified. That's the legal process in the United States of America.
So there you go. Today, folks, I just want to encourage you. I think that that'll be the final call of the day, to check out everything that we've produced just for Veterans Day. We've got the special video I did for Veterans Day acknowledging the service of one specific veteran, telling a story. So I think that makes it important too. And if you that's great for like teenagers, young, a bit older kids too, and for you to watch an American hero, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Kettles, just to highlight what it means when we talk about Veterans Day. You've got Bald Beagle, and you're going to see that video on Veterans Day. If you're watching on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, you're going to see that video right after the show. So we'll stay on and play that video, and then you can find it on YouTube, Logan, so people can go there as well. People need to subscribe to the ACLJ YouTube. We're doing a lot more there, and to the Bald Beagle YouTube.
Yeah. We're spending a lot more time on YouTube. You're seeing a lot of posts, a lot of comments happening about social media in general. We've seen that audience on YouTube explode really in the last few days as people are searching and needing new content. So we encourage you, definitely subscribe if you're watching right now, although a lot of you are even on our YouTube channel live. Subscribe to the ACLJ page. Subscribe to my page, Logan Sekulow Reprogram. Subscribe to Bald Beagle, the Jay Sekulow YouTube channel. They've got a bunch of content. And if you have kids, definitely subscribe to Bald Beagle because it's safe. You know it's coming from people that you know and trust. The ACLJ team, it's very creative because we have what I think is the best creative entertainment team in the world who just happens to be creating incredible, content for a nonprofit, Christian conservative organization. We put together the best group of people on the planet, and incredible animators, incredible puppeteers, incredible writers, incredible video team. I love everything we've done so far through that, so you need to check it out, especially if you have kids and grandkids. baldbeagle.com. Just go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/baldbeagle, and you can donate as well to Bald Beagle through the ACLJ.
Support our work. Double the impact your donation to Matching Challenge Month. We are involved in every single battle you can imagine. As you know, folks, donate today at aclj.org and double the impact your donation. Remember, that video on Veterans Day is about to play for you watching on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube.
Number 11, your order is ready. Fries, soda, 6-piece nuggets. Number 11, prepare for the best nuggets in history.
It's time for Nuggets of Information. Let's talk about Veterans Day. Do you know what Veterans Day is? Veterans Day is a special day where we celebrate all soldiers, whether they're actively serving or retired, who've served this country. Not to be confused with Memorial Day, which is a special day where we remember and honor those soldiers who lost their lives in the service of our nation. Did you know there are now 6 branches of the U.S. military? The Army, the Navy, the the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, and the newest branch, the Space Force. They exist to defend our freedoms and keep us safe here on the land, on the sea, in the sky, and even way, way up above it, in the stars. The first Veterans Day was November 11th, 1918, the day World War I ended. In 1919, over 100 years ago, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th as a day to honor our veterans. It was originally called Armistice Day because it was the day Germany and the United States signed the Armistice Agreement. An armistice is when enemies agree to stop fighting. That makes Veterans Day a celebration of peace. The name was officially changed to Veterans Day in 1954 by President Dwight Eisenhower, so that it included veterans of all wars, not just World War I. Other countries recognize this day too. Australia and our neighbor to the north, Canada, also honor veterans on November 11th, but they call it Remembrance Day. Great Britain celebrates Remembrance Day, but they do it on the Sunday closest to November 11th. All of our soldiers fought side by side in the First and Second World Wars. It's very important to recognize the sacrifice and bravery of our soldiers. Without them, this country might be very different, and we might not enjoy the freedoms that we do today, including cheeseburgers. Those are good. So if you see a veteran or if someone in your family served in the military, make a point to thank them for their service. You don't even have to wait until Veterans Day. It's always a good day to tell a soldier thank you. Every one of us owes our veterans a lot.
Number 11!
Uh-oh, gotta run. This has been Nuggets of Information, Veterans Day edition. See you all again soon. And remember to thank a veteran today.
Whoa, those nuggets are spicy today. Order number 11!